When most South Africans look at buying a new car, they generally like to consider what we call the German 3, right?
I'm suggesting we call it the German 2 3/4. Let me tell you why. No matter what segment you look at, if you want to go and compare these cars, it's usually Merc and BMW that are going head to head. Audi is kind of always there and thereabouts. Not that there's anything wrong with their product, but it just from a consumer perspective, it always seems like those are the two top sellers.
This is true, but at the same time one can understand why this is the case, because BMW has always been seen as the sporty car, whereas Mercedes has been the more classy vehicle.
It's true.
And Audi, they've got great build quality, we can say.
Nothing wrong with great build quality, but how do you package that as a super sexy advert that gets people to want to buy the car? But this looks good. It looks sexy. It's got beautiful lines. It's all new Audi A4. Is this finally going to be a fair fight between BMW, Merc and Audi? It's become the norm for a new model to be bigger than the one it replaces, and the Audi certainly is no exception. While it has grown in size, the new A4 is up to 120 kilograms lighter, depending on the derivative. So even though the styling changes have been subtle ones for me, they really do a fantastic job in changing the overall look and feel of the A4. I really like it. Solid looking presence.
Again, in the interior of the car, it's the same story. It's subtle changes, but like all Audis, it's really a nice cabin to be sitting inside. We've got good build quality, the finishings are quite great as well, and we've got just a nice overall great feeling cabin inside the car.
Yeah, that is standard fare for Audi. I must admit what I'm enjoying, and this is critical, is sitting in the back of the car, because the car is now obviously a lot bigger and longer. Not only are you scoring in the boot, but very importantly, fantastic legroom and headroom, and that's a plus. A little thing I do find puzzling though, I mean, this car is not cheap, and I've got no air vents in the back, so your passengers are going to be having a sweaty trip sitting in the back of the A4.
Another thing though that we've seen in other Audis, such as the TT, is the virtual cockpit. And that is really a must that you need to get in this car. The only problem is that to get the virtual cockpit, you have to have the navigation, which costs 25,000 Rand, which is a bit crazy, I must say. That's a bit crazy. I mean, to spend 25,000 Rand for a 4,000 Rand option, doesn't make that much sense.
I find that bizarre. So, I mean, I understand why they've got it as split line items, because you might want the nav without the virtual cockpit. But at the end of the day, navigation is kind of, it was cool maybe 5 or 6 years ago. Now with integration of smartphone technology into all your cars, most people are using navigation on phones anyway. So to pay 25 grand, when what you actually want is the new virtual cockpit tech for 4.5, Audi, come on, seriously. Virtual cockpit, we don't need the navigation for that amount of money. Crazy.
Engine technologies are also new in this new A4. We get a 1.4 turbocharged engine as the entry level, and then we get the 2-litre turbo, such as the one we're sitting in right now.
Yeah, look, I mean, the 2-litre diesel is coming later on in the year, but I haven't been on launch. I know you were there, you drove the 1.4. We've obviously in the 2-litre turbo, fantastic car. I mean, lots of response, low down torque. It's a well-known engine, tried and tested for Audi, so you know what you're getting. What was your impression of that 1.4 though? Would that be the one to buy?
To be honest, after driving the 1.4 back-to-back with driving the 2-litre, I must say I would actually go for the 1.4 because the 1.4 features 110 kilowatts and 250 newton meters of torque, whereas this features 140 kilowatts and 320 newton meters of torque. So there's not a huge power difference. So I would actually save some money and go for the 1.4 turbo.
I suppose that's the incredible thing with the new engine technologies now, the small capacity turbos. You'd think in a car like this size, a big car, that a 1.4, how is it possible to drive it? But it certainly can. Maybe up here on the Highveld, that's where the 2-litre diesel and the petrol will probably be the ones that people might want to go for, but nice to have a cheaper entry level on the A4 range, which is really solid. From a drive perspective though, that is one thing with this A4. Comfortable, insulated, NVH levels are absolutely amazing. You're not going to arrive at work or your destination stressed out and tired. It is a really, really beautiful car to drive.
Exactly. I mean, Audi have really stressed the fact that they want to build a quiet cabin, and they have achieved that in this car because driving it, even for 20 kilometers or 120 kilometers or 400 kilometers, you don't feel tired after driving the car. I mean, it really is a pleasure to be behind the wheel of the car.
Part of the reason why the A4's cabin is such a restful place is because of the car's superior aerodynamics. With a drag coefficient figure of just 0.23, it makes it the most aerodynamic car in its class, while clever touches like wing mirrors mounted on the A-pillars and an acoustic film on the windscreen help to reduce noise levels inside the A4.
So earlier on we were just speaking about the 2 3/4 Germans. But after driving this new A4, we can really say that there are 3 Germans. In fact, could we possibly say that this is the first German?
telling you now, I'm very impressed. Just the all-round package on this A4 is really incredible. But the thing that does confuse me is more the brand snobbery of our consumers.
That's true.
I want you to take the Passat as case in point.
I see where you're going with this, Marius.
Yeah.
I mean, the Passat comes from the same family. You also get a 1.4 turbo, you get a 2-litre turbo, and as well you get a 1.8 turbo.
Yeah.
But with the 2-litre turbo, especially that car, if you take a full spec version of that vehicle, that car's not going to cost you more than R500,000.
Yeah.
But with this car, at the end of the day,
Base price 520,000. With the spec we've got 650,000, and the 2-litre in the A4 is less powerful than the 2-litre in the Passat.
interesting.
So the question really isn't about how good the German 3 are, but more a case of how good you are as a buyer.